Well, here we are in merry old England, where we've been for a while. It's Friday the 20th of August, and we've come to Hampton Court, the Tudor palace on the banks of the Thames. And we've been doing quite a lot. We've been too busy even to photograph. We've been to the Victoria and Albert Museum. We've been to Harrods. Yesterday we went to Buckingham Palace. And lo and behold, we found Bill Shea in town. And I went with him to Westminster Abbey yesterday afternoon. We really have been very busy. We had a hard time getting here. Our plane developed engine trouble over Montreal, and we had to detour to Dulles, and by the time we got to Heathrow we were 5 hours late on our trip, but we did make it, and we did make it safely. And we're here today. This is the best weather we've had all week, and we're going to have a wonderful time here at this absolutely incredible palace.
Okay, start with your left hand and point around here to some of the... This is the East Gate right here. Okay?
And
there's some of the funny chimneys up there.
the Tudor chimneys, the brickwork on them is incredible. There are several dozen of them just around this court, and the brick designs on each one is different. Marvelous.
Somebody sure keeps the grass well mowed, don't they? Now, this may look spectacular to you people, but it's only the gatehouse. Okay, let's move around and see what we have up here. Now we've come to another gatehouse. This evidently belonged to Anne. As we surround here, we'll get a better view of this area here. Come speak to the machine, sweetheart.
Just a minute. Just a minute.
As long as we're at the clock court, let's take a closer look at the clock, and Ruthie will tell us about it.
This is an astronomical clock that's been operating since 1540 and announces such data as the time, the date, month, phases of the moon, and the state of the tide at London Bridge. How you read it, I don't know, but there we are.
I was going to ask you what the tide was down at London Bridge.
High tide, high tide.
Oh, okay. Good answer. Now, I think there was a sign that said that this was Henry VIII's wing right through
Well, his
here.
apartments are up in this area, up through,
Where
we go
you're
up these
pointing right
stairs,
now.
and his
Okay.
apartments are up in here. This looks like the chapel here, doesn't it?
Okay, so we're going to see Henry's apartment right now. Now, we can't photograph in the rooms, which are very magnificent, but we can photograph out here in the courtyard. And the sun has just come out, and it's a beautiful day today, and we're seeing lots of things. This is the second courtyard down from the entry gate. And eventually we'll be working our way back to the big garden, which is absolutely magnificent. See how blue the sky is? See how beautiful the stonework is here? So we're out in the gardens now, and if anything, the garden or gardens are more magnificent than the building itself. But as we pan around here, you can see beautiful stands of trees, well cared for flower beds and fountains, and the trees have all been clipped into a conical shape. And then going over on the far side, we see more of the flower beds, and they're really, truly gorgeous. Ruthie, do you have anything to say to us?
The sign says keep off the grass.
Excuse me?
You're on the grass. The sign says keep off the grass.
Oh, okay.
Please.
I'll hang from the tree here then and get off the grass. Okay, I'm off the grass now. I'm on the gravel. What do you think?
Now you're a good boy.
Okay. Well, I've filmed this. Why don't you talk about what we just saw.
We've just been through the William III apartments, which is a redesigned section of the palace done by Sir Christopher Wren. And what was especially interesting to me was all of the beautiful carvings, mostly in wood, by Grinling Gibbons. Absolutely fantastic wood carving.
Nicely done, thank you.
Let's walk down a way.
We saw the ducks and swans on the pond here, and so Ruthie just figured she had to get these photographed, and there she is over there. Let's see if we can find her. There's that nice big swan there. And here comes Ruthie. Did you get your swan?
You don't have to track? You have to take it again until you track
The day is just about over, and Ruthie is taking one final shot of the front of Hampton Court. We could not do that when we started this morning, because the sun was directly in the other direction, but now the sun has turned around and we can get a shot of Hampton Court from the front. And it was really a very special place to be, quite a treat for us to see all of this. And the rooms, the kitchen, the artwork, the gardens, fantastic. Good morning, it's Saturday, and we're starting on our adventures for today. The first thing we're going to look at is this massive structure, which is kind of a Ferris wheel sort of thing, but instead of the normal little carts that they pull people in, they have 25 passenger gondolas. It rotates and takes about 45 minutes to go the complete circle. As you see it now lying down, it will shortly be raised to a vertical position. We'll get a shot of it a little bit later. Okay, we have made our way to St. Paul's via the Blackfriar Underground, and Ruthie will tell you more about St. Paul. Ruthie, you're on.
Okay, well, this is the Great Cathedral, designed and built by Sir Christopher Wren in the late 17th century following the Great Fire in London of 1666. The cathedral is 515 feet long, 365 feet high, and such people as Wellington and Lord Nelson are buried here, Sir Joshua Reynolds, J.M.W. Turner, and we're going to go see it all.
Let's go do it. The sun doesn't favor us very well from this angle, but we'll take a shot of the front entry here to St. Paul. And as you can see, it looks like they could use a little sandblasting. We're going to sally forth up there. Ruth, do you have anything more to say here?
Nope.
Okay, here we go. So, 536 steps later, we're at the top of St. Paul. Presently, we're looking up the Thames River. As you can see, Parliament building out there. And Ruthie, why don't you take it from there?
Okay, here's the bridge here with the three boats tied up in front of it is Waterloo. The next one is the foot and train bridge that goes across from the south bank to Charing Cross Station.
Okay.
We can just see the top of Big Ben past that building. Coming along the Thames here.
I see the top of Big Ben, okay.
Coming along out straight from us now.
Okay.
Is the Old Globe Theatre. The Old Globe.
Okay, I've got the Old Globe.
Looking down river. Looking down.
River. Yeah.
We can see Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge.
Tower Bridge.
The drawbridge part of it was just lower. It was open when we got here.
I see.
And then the trees off there, obscured by some buildings, is the tower.
mal die Cathedral nicht so schräg.
Very good. The railroad bridge that I'm focused on right now is Charing Cross Bridge. Now, the distance that the bridge is over water, if you took that distance and went inland, is right where Trafalgar Square should be, and I think the monument to Nelson is obscured, but it would be right out in there. In fact, that might be Nelson's. Yeah, that's Nelson's monument right there. See him? I'm sorry the camera's a little bit jerky, but I do believe that that's Lord Nelson right there.
We're on the heights above Edinburgh at Edinburgh Castle. We arrived in Scotland on Sunday, and John and Margaret picked us up. We came through Glasgow, and they met us there and drove us down to their charming little house in Dalbeattie. I'm driving the car and doing well so far. We arrived in Edinburgh this morning. We were supposed to take the train, but had problems with that, so ended up driving. It's kind of a cold, raw day, especially up here on this rocky mount above the city and above the Forth of Firth. Behind me over my left shoulder is the tiny little Norman chapel that King Malcolm III of Scotland, also known as Malcolm Canmore, built for his wife Margaret, the Saxon princess, in the 11th century. She is my direct ancestor, so I'm looking forward to going in and seeing her chapel.
That big chapel over there, do you know the name of that one?
No, I'm not
Okay.
even sure it's a chapel.
Okay.
So
Well, let's go up and look into St. Margaret's, right?
okay. Now this gives a different story. It says it was built by her son, David I. But my notes say it was built by Malcolm III, her husband.
So we get an outside view of it right here. Ruthie's over here looking out at the view from here. And we can swing around down here to the courtyard and with the cannons and people. I was here 27 years ago and with my son, and we were the only two people up here. Amazing what 27 years will do for you. You want to talk about the Union Jack?
The Union Jack came about, I believe, after the unification of 1707, and it represents St. George's Cross, which is the upright red cross on the white background. The diagonal red cross on the white background is the flag of St. Patrick, representing Ireland, and the white cross on the blue represents the Saltire, the cross of St. Andrews, representing Scotland.
Very good. And this is the War Memorial Building to soldiers probably from World War
One,
Like
or maybe earlier.
Nothing like having plenty of wars to keep your chapels going. Well, this is another view of the castle. We're down in the grass market right now, and it's quite noisy here, but we were just up there a few minutes ago, and now we're down here headed for our hotel. You can see the bleachers off to the right. Those are the north bleachers, and that's where we will have our seat tomorrow night when we go to the Tatoo. Well, this isn't a very interesting shot, but we're right down at the foot of the Royal Mile, and we've done the shops, and we're going to come back to the shops, but now we're going to go over to the palace. Okay, you're on.
You can't hear me from there.
I can hear you.
I'm not shouting.
There's the palace. We'll go back to the palace and hear what Ruthie has to say.
It's a cold, rainy-ish Wednesday morning, and we've come to the Royal Palace of Holyrood House. This is the Queen's official residence when she's in Scotland. This particular house was started by James I in 1601. The Abbey itself, which this was a part of, was started in 1128 by King David I. In 1601, James I decided it would be nice to have a more comfortable residence here, so he cleared some land and started the building, and as is usually true, it has been much changed, much added to, much redecorated over the ensuing years.
We've left the palace and now we're out in the adjacent abbey, and the weather's not being too kind to us presently, but at least we'll be able to see the remains of this old abbey, which has fallen in disrepair. But it is a magnificent structure. Ruthie's over there someplace. I can't quite find her right this moment. There she is down there. Looks as if she's going to take my photograph. Yeah, there's the red light. I've just been photographed. But that's not for a speeding ticket. Yeah, this is what the other side of the abbey looks like. Stonework is spectacular. I thought that everything here had to be done by muscle, no power equipment at all. It's rather overwhelming. These plaques out here are burial markers for military personnel of the Scot Army and Navy. Well, we're about to leave the palace grounds, but I wanted to photograph the entryway, which is some beautiful stonework. But especially I wanted to photograph this outcropping of stone that goes directly up behind the castle. And you can see there is a portion of the castle that we have just visited, and there's this huge big outcropping of stuff up there.
There are enough of them?
were going to say something.
straight from here, men. You must die where you stand. As the Russians continued to advance, the Highlanders held their nerve and the accuracy of their fire finally broke the charm. After Mcclellan landed times to strike the 93rd, was the thin, red line. In 1881, the 93rd were amalgamated with the 91st Argyle Highlanders, fighting together as the Argyle and Southern Highlanders, first in the Boer War in South Africa, and later in the First. 93rd won gold and laurels at the Tatoo, and the defence of Polygon Wood in the Third Battle of Edinburgh. Field Marshal Wallace Monument, famous Order of the Day in March 1918, would fight on to the end, to clear echoes from Campbell's Corner and Argyle. The outbreak of the Second World War, the battalions of the regiment were dispersed to all the main theatres of the war, mainland Europe, North Africa, and the Far East. Where it had been sent in the last year for more independence. Under the Lieutenant Colonel Collins, he carried out a politically moral and totally successful operation to re-enter Traitor District, which had been turned into a Caerlaverock about the terrorists. The following year, the government threatened to disband the regiment, but it was checked after a huge outcry from the public who had been stirred by the action in Crater. Most recently, the Argyle and Scotland Highlanders have been playing their full part in the United Nations peacekeeping force in Bosnia, and they're presently deployed in Northern Ireland. Ladies and gentlemen, Scotland salutes 2 centuries of magnificent service from the Sutherland and now the Argyle and Sutherland Highlanders. Ladies and gentlemen, the cast of the 1999 Edinburgh Military Tatoo.
Rain again with us. It's late Thursday morning, the 26th. We've come to Leith, which is the port district for the city of Edinburgh, on the Firth of Forth, and we're visiting the former royal yacht Britannia, which was launched in 1953 by the Queen, commissioned in '54, and then retired from service in 1997, having sailed well over 1 million miles and nearly 1,000 state and official visits around the world.
Anybody important aboard this boat?
Anybody important aboard the boat now? No, it's
Yeah.
just a bunch of tourists like us. Many, many important figures from many walks of life have appeared on this ship. It's been the scene of investitures, knightings, state visits, state dinners, royal honeymoons. And now it's been reduced to being a tourist attraction.
Make more money this way.
Yeah,
Let's go take a look.
okay.
So we can start up here at the bow, work back to the bridge, the wheelhouse, and coming down along on the sides here. And go right back down along the side to the stern. And rain is kind of cutting things off here, but we'll go aboard and see what else we can do. And now we're on the veranda deck. The rain has let up and we can see a good deal of Edinburgh Harbour out through here. And over here is Ruthie's smiling face. Smiling face, Ruthie. Well, maybe not.
I'm listening.
Okay. We left Edinburgh at 9 o'clock and at just 10 o'clock we came in here to Melrose. And now we're going to visit the Abbey, but Ruthie has got a commentary upon that. Ruthie?
This was a Cistercian abbey for monks from Yorkshire that was founded by King David I in 1136. It is the burial site of the heart of Robert the Bruce. When he died, he asked a knight friend of his to take it in a silver casket to bury it in the Holy Land, but the knight was killed en route and the silver casket was found under his dead body and was brought here to Melrose to be buried. And we'll see if we can find the location of the burial site.
This is gorgeous country through here. The hour journey from Edinburgh down here is this most lovely country you've ever seen. I find the churchyard very interesting here. This marker is to Janet Scot, who died in the late 1800s. My grandmother, great-grandmother, was Janet Scot, but she had immigrated to the United States in 1853. But as I look around, this seems to be a whole group of headstones who are Scots. And the information I have shows that my grandmother Scot had come from this area. Once you have seen one Scot castle, I think you've seen them all. They all look to have the same magnificent stonework, and yet they all appear to be falling down.
Falling down has done been did.
Do you need any more to say, sweetheart?
No, except this is so gorgeous in its ruined state. The birds seem to like it up there.
Now from the other side of the abbey, we can swing around over to this rubble and out into the churchyard, and here we find Robert the Bruce. And it says, "A noble heart may have may ease." And here is buried the heart of Robert the Bruce.
Well, it's a little later on Friday morning, and we're about 5 miles from the ruins of Melrose Abbey. We're here at Dryburgh Abbey, which is the most complete of all the border abbeys. This one was founded by the Cistercian monks about 1150, and like the other border abbeys was continually raided, destroyed, rebuilt, destroyed by the English raiders of the 14th century. It's thought that one reason that there were so many abbeys here along the border was to demonstrate to the English how religious and peaceful the Scots were, and that didn't stop the English from destroying their abbeys nonetheless.
Let's go to Sir Walter Scott.
Okay. In front of us here are the burial site of Sir Walter Scott and some other family members of his. The abbey was actually owned by the Scot family for a short period of time during the 18th century, and Scott asked to be buried here.
And again we see the beautiful stonework in the construction of the abbey. This is all the ruin of the original abbey, and we can go up here and look at more of the stonework here. Okay. We haven't found the burial spot of General Haig. General Haig was a field marshal in the British Army during World War I. Now we've come into a portion of the remaining structure, and more of the Gothic arches, stonework, and artistry. And one of the little ante-rooms to the original abbey. Wave, Ruthie. Anything to say?
This was one of the dormitory rooms.
Where do they serve lunch here? Do you know?
I don't know.
We'd better
I
find
haven't
out.
found it yet.
We'd better find out. It's after 12 o'clock. Starting back at our reference point, I sweep around here and you can see this huge, beautiful, big lawn area surrounded by a wall, and a portion of the abbey or another abbey, and then pasture land behind us, and abbey behind us. Well, here we're doing our third abbey in the one day. This abbey is quite interesting because notice that all the arches are Roman arches. They're not Gothic as the others have been. We're in the parking lot. We're going to go over there in just a minute, but look here at the beautiful flowers over here. I suppose that the heavy rains are conducive to beautiful gardens. Every place we go, we see lots of fresh flowers, a lot of begonias, very, very lovely flowers.
These are the remains of the old Augustinian abbey at Jedburgh, very near the border with England. This is another one of David I's building projects, begun about 1138. The Abbey Church is here above us, and the foundations of the chapter house, the dormitory, the refectory are here underneath the Abbey ruins.
What intrigues me here is that inside the Roman arches are Gothic arches. What is this way down along on the left-hand side, pal?
Well, it looks like it might have been storage area for the food and the wine. We'll find out, I think, walking around.
Okay, let's go take a look. Looking down the nave, it's beautiful architecture of Roman and Gothic style. What is interesting to me is that as high as the wall is here, going to the other side and looking down from the clerestory to the wall off to the right, there are no flying buttresses, and it seems that it's a very, very high wall without some support. We've all heard of the Gothic and the Ionic capital. This is called the waterfall capital. Speak! I thought I could get her to talk to us, but evidently she won't. Okay, you're on.
I'm on?
Yeah.
I'm trying not to squint. It's Saturday morning, I believe the 28th of August. We're not really sure. But we're back in Dalbeattie after a great time in Edinburgh and 3 ruined abbeys on the way home. King is going. This is the Brodie's house. This is the backyard. And the Scots, including Margaret, certainly do wonderful things with their gardens. This is just gorgeous. This is probably the nicest day we've had so far. It's almost warm, beautiful sun. There's the golf course out yonder where John plays.
Yeah, well, I'll close in on that. I don't see anybody up there playing right now.
I've seen people this morning, and we can tell there's a farm nearby because we have that distinctive odor in the air this morning. Just adds to the pastoral ambiance of the place.
I'm going to turn around and get a picture of the house now. Okay, you're on again.
I'm on again?
Yeah.
Well, I'm doing laundry. The lady next door is doing laundry. It's a laundry sort of day.
You know, the Brodie's house is just absolutely gorgeous, both inside and outside, and we're enjoying it immensely. When the sun shifts around, we'll get a better photograph of the front of the house. But kind of looks like their little homemade nursery right here. Now, as we come around the front of the house, here is a nice little Peugeot station wagon we have been driving. And the garden here in front is just as lovely as in the back. The whole neighborhood is quite lovely. This is called Maxwell Place. And from head on, it looks like this. Ruthie's up there in that front bedroom right now getting a little nap. This is the golf course directly behind John and Margaret's home. And Saturday afternoon, and several people are out enjoying the course. And we couldn't have picked a more beautiful day to be here. Everything is just perfect. I have tried to stay off the green. However, all at once I find myself in the middle of 2 greens here. So it's really quite an extensive golf course. And it's very difficult to tell where the countryside ends and the golf course begins. I thought at the top of the hill that I might find out where the perimeter of the course was, and I'm not sure that I have found it. but it just could be that I'm completely lost. Now and there, I believe, is the clubhouse. It's still going strong here. I'm at the highest level around, and I believe that this is maybe the last green. I'm on the very north side of the golf course, and the countryside in the background is as beautiful as it gets. Very, very lovely country.
It's Monday morning, cold, misty, Scottish weather, what we came prepared for, more or less. And behind me is the Sweetheart Abbey, which is a 13th century Cistercian abbey. It's called the Sweetheart Abbey because Dvorgilla de Balliol, who with her husband founded Balliol College at Oxford, is buried here with the embalmed heart of her husband, which she carried around with her for 22 years after his death until she died. Hence, Sweetheart.
Well, maybe we'd better go take a better look inside.
This is quite beautiful, isn't it?
Looks like the rest of them.
Well, they're all a little different. Come on.
And this is what it looks like from the other side. Again, marvelous stonework, brickwork. When you think that this is 700 years old, it's quite amazing. Ruthie's over there getting the tickets.
Near this spot was buried in 1289 Lady Dvorgilla of Galloway, foundress of this abbey, who with her husband John of Balliol founded Balliol College, Oxford.
And take two.
This stone was placed here by the Master and Fellows of Balliol College, Oxford, to commemorate 700 years in the history of the college, and this has a date of 1963 on it.
We've just gone through quite a history lesson here. This is the birthplace of John Paul Jones. There's been a fine film inside which we've watched, and the surrounding area is where he was raised. On the building is this plaque to Commodore John Paul Jones, who is credited as being one of the fathers of the American Navy. And as we look out over here, this is the area where there was a great deal of sailing commerce before the railroads.
It's Tuesday morning, the last day of August, and once again we're enjoying our cool, damp, more than damp, Scottish weather. We abandoned our plans to go to Glasgow and instead decided to do some more touring around Dumfries and Galloway. Behind me is Caerlaverock Castle, a very strong castle. Construction was begun about 1220 by the Maxwell family, and in 1300 Edward I, who was in Carlisle, not too far away, decided to storm the castle. He sent 87 knights and 3,000 men along with siege engines to try to storm this castle, which is triangular shaped with very strong towers at each corner, moats around it. Here we see the moat, which was a formidable barrier to the castle. And you can see two corners. The main entrance went over the drawbridge and between two towers. When Edward's men finally succeeded in getting the castle after laying siege to it for 2 days, they were shocked to discover that the fierce defenders of the castle amounted to only 60 men. And most of...
So, in we go. Look at the length of this hallway, entryway. Wowee. Coming?
Yeah, across the drawbridge.
So, from the back of the castle, we'll pan around and see more of it. Everything is double-walled here. Looks like a fortress. Come on into the banquet hall, Ruthie. Look up here, Ruthie. I found some steps that you can climb up if you'd like to.
More steps. Wonderful.
Talk about luck. We have found another castle right here where we had lunch. And I'm going to let Ruthie tell you about it. Okay, Chief, you're on.
Okay, we're in the town of Coobry, and this is Mcclellan's castle. It was built in 1577. The stonemasons used stone that came from a nearby ruined abbey of an earlier date.
Okay, and you're going to go through and
Yeah.
look at everything, huh?
Yeah.
Good girl. Okay, I'll do that.
This is Dundrennan Abbey, another of the abbeys founded by David I. It was built in the second half of the 12th century. It was a Cistercian abbey, and one of the most interesting things about it is that when Mary, Queen of Scots, was forced to leave Scotland, she spent her last night on Scottish soil in this abbey.
This looks like it's much like the other ones we've seen.
Well, it's not the red sandstone.
Would you like to read what that says there?
Okay, the reorganization of the Scottish Church, which started in the early 12th century, saw the setting up of many important abbeys. Dundrennan was one of them. Dundrennan Abbey was founded in 1142 for Cistercian monks, either by King David I or by the great magnate of the area, Fergus, Lord of Galloway.
Ruthie does not agree with me, but I do believe that once you've seen one of these old worn down abbeys, you've probably seen all of them. Now we are in what used to be the transept of the abbey, and it appears that this structure goes on and on and on. From this side of the transept there's this little doorway, and the doorway goes out into what must have been the housekeeping and dormitories for the abbey, all under construction.
Okay, this is a stone house built in the shape of a tower. It was very popular in the mid-15th century when this one was built.
Does it have a name?
Orchardton Tower.
No fortification, just a place to live, huh?
Yes, but defendable.
Well, it's in this beautiful little valley. What's the name of the city we're near, or town where we're near, dear?
I don't remember.
Well, we're only about 5 miles from Dalbeattie.
There were fortified tower residences like this all over Scotland in the Middle Ages. The thing that makes this one unique is this is the only one that was circular. They came in other shapes, L shape, T shape, Z shape, but Orchardton Tower here was the only circular one.
Well, we just had lunch at a Safeway, and now we've gone through some interesting traffic gyrations, and we're trying to find both the home of Robert Burns and his the Robert Burns Center. So far, we've found where his tomb is, mausoleum, and if you look up here, this is St. Michael's Church, and I have commented about that church that the stone looks as if it has a birthmark on one side there. Now Ruthie has termed this the worst churchyard she's ever seen. However, the stone is kind of bleak and large, but there is a mausoleum in the background, and we'll go down and see where the remains of Robert Burns are. We're quite overcome by the size of these headstones, and interestingly enough, the names at the top of these would be Bill Smith Baker or Bill Smith Blacksmith. But be that as it may, Ruthie has found the mausoleum. Turn around and wave, kid.
I can't, I'm hanging on by my toenails here.
I thought maybe you were caught. Well, I'll take a chance taking a shot through the glass here at the mausoleum, but this is the headstone, and you can see besides Robert Burns, there's Maxwell Burns, Francis Wallace Burns, and evidently children's and friends. So we've walked across the street, and here is the house, Burns's house. Interesting thing that I learned, which I hadn't known before, and probably you all do, is that Old Lang Syne that we sing every New Year's was written by Robert Burns. We just got the high sign from Ruthie. What I filmed is not Burns's house, but it's across the street where the arrow points, over here.
This is another one of the fortified tower houses. This one was built about 1570, and it's on the L-shaped plan, although here it looks square. It's located, as it would have been centuries ago, amidst farm buildings, although the buildings would have looked somewhat different. And it was owned by a cadet branch of the Maxwell family from Caerlaverock Castle that we went to yesterday. I don't know if you can hear me very well. We've come to the Bannockburn Heritage Center. Bannockburn is the battlefield where...
Would you like to just come into the theatre first?
Okay. Where Robert the Bruce defeated Edward II of England in 1314 to establish Scottish independence.
Well, I'm recording. Do you want to say anything about what you see here?
This tableau represents Isabella Fife crowning Robert the Bruce king on the 25th of March in 1306. This was 6 weeks after he had murdered his chief rival, his cousin John the Red Comyn, in the Greyfriars Church in Dumfries. Isabel stood in for her brother, Duncan of Fife. It was traditionally the male head of the family who did it, but he was unavailable to crown the king.
So, this is the good King Robert, and we get a closer view of him on his throne. And he ruled Scotland from 1306 to 1329. And here is signing of the Declaration of something. It was supposed to have been a prototype for the Declaration of Independence. So here's a diorama of the Scot family starting with Robert the Bruce. Coming around here, there's Robert II, Robert III, James I, James II. Further around, James III.
Fourth,
Fourth.
who was married to Marie de Guise, mother of Mary Queen of Scots.
There's a Mary, is that Mary Queen of Scot?
No, she's over here.
Okay. Here's Mary Queen of Scot. And then coming a little bit further here, we have
James VI.
James VI, who became James I of England, notorious for having been instrumental in the King James Version of the Bible, and also as one of the people that helped put his mother to death. Well, from this beautiful country, we come into the actual site of where the battle took place. And the circular area here has a monument to the battle. There's Ruthie in the background. And here is Bruce's declaration that we don't fight for glory or money, we only fight for freedom. And there's a little look at Ruthie. And there is Robert Bruce on his horse over there, and we'll get a close-up of that. Wind's blowing up here, and I hope that doesn't affect the sound too much. We're overlooking the battle site of the Battle of Bannock, where Bruce prevailed. And there in the background is Stirling Castle, and this is what Bruce was defending to deny its occupancy to the British. Well, we're high on a windy hill here, up at Stirling Castle, and there's so many things to see here, I'm not quite sure where we should start. This is the courtyard right here, and it looks as if there's a bird show going on down there. And here's a portion of the castle here. And as I swing around just a little bit, we'll pick up Ruthie over there by the guide. And there's Ruthie. Look this way, Ruthie. So, we'll go take a look at more of it. We'll look at the garden first. Gorgeous garden down there. Beautiful garden. So now we're inside the gate. Ruthie's over with the crowd, and this is the artillery casement up here. This is a portion of the original castle, but it's been painted over. And this shows the side of the building. Damage to the statues had been done by artillery from the Jacobites. And on with the guided tour.
Once again, the two battles with the Great Walls are truly appreciated. Predominantly, the images of the classic Greek gods have escaped the damage of siege, artillery, bombardment, wild Scottish winter.
This shot's going to be silent as the wind is going to damage the speech. Let's swing around from the Douglas Garden and look what we have down here. It's a big strong door. In the distance we can see the Wallace Monument. You're supposed to be able to see how many places from the top there, dear?
7 battlefields.
7 battlefields from there. It's 265 steps to get up to the top.
Well, it's not St. Paul's. We could do that twice.
Yeah, of course we could. But in the meantime, we'll just do the rest of Stirling Castle. Now back to the garden, huh? So here's the museum of the Argyle and Sutherland Highlanders, and we're going to take a look in here. There's Ruthie over with the owls. She doesn't know that you can't talk Cocker Spaniel to an owl. There's the owl up on its perch. Ooh, ooh, ooh. He's afraid of Ruthie. Beautiful little courtyard. That's the castle, and this is the outer wall, courtyard to the castle. Here's a model of the castle. In the foreground you can see the garden where we had seen the owl show. And directly behind us you can see the other buildings. Ruthie, do you want to point out anything there? Point out the Great Hall.
Stirling Castle,
This is
the
the Great
result
Hall
of many
right here.
centuries of
It's being
building,
renovated.
demolition, and rebuild
This
on
is
the
where
castle
the
block.
military museum is.
The
This is the
Green
chapel
Angels,
royal. The
bolted
royal
by
apartments were
chambers
here.
now, were
The
built in the
stonework
18th
inside
century,
this
based
gate
upon earlier
may be
16th
the
century
earliest
architects, which
existing
traced out over the years.
stonework in the castle at this
When you
time.
go out of here,
Good.
look.
We're on the esplanade of Stirling Castle, and down below us is this lovely U-shaped Renaissance building that's called Argyle's Lodging, because it did at one point belong to the Earl of Argyle. Good morning. We have good weather at last. Yesterday it turned nice on our drive up here to Bannockburn. We're near Stirling. We've been to the castle, and this morning we're getting ready to leave, but King wanted to walk out to the statue of Robert the Bruce, and as you can see, this hotel was named in his honor. I'm not sure how much of an honor that was, but anyway, we spent the night here.
And had a nice breakfast. Good English breakfast. Scot breakfast.
We've come to the old city of Dunfermline, Scotland. It used to be the capital, and this is the church. The old abbey ruins have been incorporated into this church. A Benedictine priory was started here by Queen Margaret sometime before she died in 1093, and it grew into a large church, and her son David I re-established the priory in 1128. Behind King are the remains of the refectory, the palace, the guest quarters, the chapter house. There's more beyond this big wall that has the window in it. We're going to go inside the church now and find some of the royal graves.
Including?
Robert the Bruce, Malcolm III Canmore, and Queen Margaret.
Great, let's go do that. Inside the church, we see this lovely stained glass window, including the Last Supper. We swing around here a little bit, and here is the standard of Robert the Bruce. And a little bit further, we see the Cross of St. Andrews, which is significant of the Scottish throne. And under the altar is the burial place of Robert the Bruce.
We would say the cheap and nasty could be expensive, but the idea of it fancy though, but to be honest with you, we'll get to it. professionally taken and non-professionally, you get all the reflections, and it doesn't matter.
All of these people are photographing this castle over here, which is Swarthmore Castle. Ruthie and I have just finished visiting the castle. While she's in the gift shop, I thought I'd take a photo up here and get some of the scenery. If you look closely, it kind of resembles Disneyland or Disney World, don't you think? Well, with the wind not blowing, this gives a better overall view of the castle. There were in the first one too.
If you're interested in titles, currently listed have got Graham of Monteith. And we're coming in to Dr. Ross's welcome to the Argyle, Gardening and Hot Punch. County and District Fighter. There's Alison Mackenzie of Edinburgh on the white stone. What can you do with that fine one step? Against the 14 regiment of the Scot pool. That's the predominantly the red colour there, with red versus green. Under the stream. All the blues are judged in there. Predominantly blue is the 17-foot marker. Predominantly blue. I take 2 points to them now. As we come into the next, remember the teams will be pulling each other, but we still have to go for the next 2 teams. Alex Webster, please report the second step. Alex Webster, please. Start race on the lead 16 local handicaps contested to far side. Next of our pipeline segment, we are going to be back in district. the attempt. After a year for stairs work. Don't know the result. I will not prejudge anything, but the record of qualifying section was set up in 1989 by Robin Martin, competing again today. Bradley and District Pipe Band, the drum major is David Gibson and the pipe major Andrew Scott. For intervening now with the 268 marchers, farewell to the Greeks and the 10th battalion each hour crossing the Rhine. In the circle, the shows of Heron, Lee Highland Light and Inner Flag. Result then is for the 16-pound ball local. First indeed was Robin Martin, second was Colin Morrison, third Neil Feige, and fourth Tommy Dower. The result of the late ball then. And that to me is a new record. The late ball qualifying section last year, Bruce Rob of Rosyth went 50 feet 11. But he first appears at Braemar, Seth Hayward of Ballashiel, 52. Of course, these lads will be in hill race as well, Beavis hill race. Yeah.
Saturday morning, and we're at Braemar at the grandest of all the Highland gatherings. We expect the Queen soon, we hope. We've been into town for a little lunch break from the festivities, and behind us coming now are the masked bands.
With us today, we have the following district by band, coming by band, Reorganization, Ruthie and district, Elgin and district one, Huntley and district by band, Stirling Castle by band. Very close together there, the navy blue of HMS Neptune. I think it's Neptune that's... No, Neptune is in third place at the moment. Fourth place. And an applause for them all. Alistair Powder, Alistair Braemar, and the Bay of Palatine. The ladies from Mackenzie. But the next of our dancers come now. And this good. And next, to try and get the balance here and run with it.
Prince assumes his usual.
What?
The prince. Well, we're speeding along now on our way back to Aberdeen, and we're going to see if we can get a shot of Balmoral Castle as we go by. It's not too far from here. No, I guess that was just blue sky. I thought I saw it over there.
I don't believe so. It's white.
Sure?
Maybe it is. Film it. We'll say it is.
We left Aberdeen about an hour ago. Now it's 9:15, and we're at Huntley. And this is the Huntley Castle. And we're here a little bit before the caretaker is, so it's not open. But we'll find some more castles on the way. We're on our way to Inverness right now. Inverness is 105 miles from Aberdeen, and we should be there probably before lunch.
Sunday morning, and we're at Elgin Cathedral in Elgin, Scotland, on our way to Inverness from Aberdeen. Elgin Cathedral, which is now a ruin, having been abandoned 400 years ago, was consecrated in 1224. Late in the next century, it was ruined by Alexander Stewart, the bastard son of King Robert II. It was rebuilt, but again it was demolished partially during the Reformation. It's particularly noteworthy for its octagonal chapter house.
I'm not quite sure why we're here. It seems to me that once you've seen one of these things, you've seen pretty much all of them. However, it's another big pile of rocks. Have anything more to say, sweet?
No, come on, let's go look at it.
I am looking at it. What do you think over there, kid? Who is the lady behind your right shoulder? That's the one.
It's Sunday afternoon, and we're near Inverness. We've come to the Culloden battlefield. Right now, King is focusing on one of the little farmhouses that was here on April 16, 1746, when Bonnie Prince Charlie was defeated by the Duke of Cumberland in the last battle ever to take place on British soil, and that battle ended the Stuart Jacobite hopes of regaining the throne of England.
Okay, I'm going to go over there on the Moray Firth. See, I think you can. There it is down there. Okay, we're about 2 miles from Inverness, and unfortunately the wind is playing havoc with us, but the countryside here is absolutely gorgeous. Do that narrative again.
Okay, the Duke of Cumberland with the English forces was here. Bonnie Prince Charlie was here with his army. The little cottage we just saw is over here. These are dikes.
There's the little cottage.
One up from where we are is the Macintosh, which is the largest grave on this site. We'll talk about that just in a minute. Now this monument here beside us was erected in 1881 by Duncan Forbes of Culloden. It was to commemorate the battle and all those who lost their lives here. It took 3 months to build this cairn, and it's a solid construction. So a fair bit of work involved in it, especially when you look at the size of some of the stones there.
It's Monday morning and we've lost our sunny weather. We're back to rainy old Scotland. But undaunted, we have set out. We are east of Inverness at a site where these stone cairns are called the Clava Cairns. They date from the 4th to the 2nd millennia BC. They were burial chambers. The stone cairns, all the piled up stones, were burial chambers for cremated remains. There are 3 of them here that we can see, and they're surrounded by stone rings.
There's ring number 2 over there. Go in a little bit closer to him. Then we'll swing just a little bit to the left, and there is ring number 3. Can you imagine getting up before breakfast to come out to see all of these piled up stones? Now as we come around, you can see that there is a entry pathway and a little gallery in the center of the stones. Any more to say, Chief?
No.
Good morning, everyone. We're at Fort George. It's just 10 o'clock in the morning, a little after 10 o'clock in the morning, and we're going in to go through the fort right now. We're at the moat, which is all stonework, and I can't get over the amount of, the extent of the work. What amazes me is that all of this was done by hand, and if you examine the stones, they're all hand-fitted. Ruthie is up on the cannon deck right now. Go back to the cannon deck. There's cannons all around this place. I really, really feel that we're under siege.
It's Tuesday morning and we've come about 15 miles south of Inverness down Loch Ness, starting our trip south down the Great Glen.
behind us, or behind me is Urquhart Bay off Loch Ness. Loch Ness is the largest of the lochs in Scotland. Loch, I should say. And off behind King are the ruins of Urquhart Castle, built about 600 years ago, rebuilt many times, sacked, burned, blown up, and finally abandoned because it had become redundant.
Okay, let's go down and see the castle, huh?
Okay. We've come down a steep walk from the car park to the vicinity of the castle. These sheep down here seem to have free run of the place. There's an archaeological dig going on off to my right.
And there's a war machine down there.
Siege engine, yes?
Siege engine, okay. And the castle's a little bit further on. We had tried to take a cruise yesterday on Loch Lomond, but we got rained out.
Yes.
So
Loch Ness.
Loch Ness. And so now we're going to go see the castle and look more at Loch Lomond and see if we can't find Loch Ness, yeah, and see if we can't find the monster. Nessie.
Here's a nice shot of the Urquhart Castle sheep again. And panning up to the right, we can see the broad scope of the archaeological dig that's going on here. Apparently they've discovered some things that have added more mystery to Loch Ness.
I do like those sheep. So here we are at the castle, the view up Loch Ness. Remember, I got the word right this time. And the sun favors us for some better shots of the castle itself. The only thing happened is that some German tourists had come in here, and now it's kind of populated. Do you have anything to say, sweetheart?
No, this is, well, only that this was quite a large castle. As you can see by the extent of the ruins.
I suppose once you've been a working man, you always worry about how much work is going into things, but the rock work and all of this stuff that needed to be done without modern equipment is overwhelming to me.
The dovecote.
The what?
The dovecote.
Oh, I'll be right over. I want to get one more view of the castle in Loch Ness. Okay, can you explain what this thing is?
Okay. This was built in the late 16th century to provide another source of food. It's the dovecote, and it stood about 4 meters, maybe 13 or so feet high, and 4 of the little nesting alcoves still exist.
And that's where the doves nested? And
Yes, they would come in through the top, and they would come down and nest in here.
So we're going south through the Highlands of Scotland. Have anything to say, sweetheart?
No, I just drive.
We go through one vista of beautiful country through another. This is what the country looks like about 10 miles north of Fort Williams. Well, presently we're about 10 miles north of Glasgow, and we just happened to run across Loch Lomond. So we have to get this on film. Well, it's a beautiful morning. We have left Dumfries Station and we're on our way to Glasgow. We'll be in there at about 10 o'clock this morning. The train is very nice and smooth. And we're going through beautiful country. We're at St. Vincent and Queen Street, big plaza here, and we've just boarded the tour bus, and we'll be going on the tour and stopping at points of interest as we go along. First priority is find a place where we can have lunch.
You nearly kill yourself running there.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, that's fine.
That was a good connection.
Yes, perfect.